Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our Sunday morning service. It's always such an honor and a privilege to be here with each one of you. I haven't done an address here before. I think this is my first address here at this particular sanctuary, and I'm so excited. So for anybody who's ever done an address before, generally what happens is a couple of days before you start thinking in your mind, what are we going to talk about? What are we going to talk about? What are we going to talk about? I'm not a planner, okay? I'm not the kind of person that's going to sit and write and have a plan. I arrive here with nothing. Driving here, the mind is going, what are we going to talk about? What are we going to talk about? When I arrive, I have an interesting conversation with Gail about guides on the wall. I had a couple of other interesting conversations with a couple of you. I had an interesting conversation with Mary before we started. And all of this is sort of melded together into exactly what we need to talk about today. Even the address, the reading that Arthur did, it all ties in, it all comes together. And the message that comes through this morning that I want to share with you, there's no right or wrong. There's no rules. We live our lives by rules. We wake up every day saying, I have to do this because it's the right thing. I have to do that because it's the right thing. Somebody is expecting this from me. Somebody is expecting that from me. So everything we do in life is based on other people's rules, regulations. Now, I'm not saying let's throw all the rules out the door. I'm not saying that at all, because we need rules. We need rules to drive on the road so that we don't have mayhem and chaos. But in our own personal lives, what rules are you living your life by? How are you doing things within your own life that is maybe not relevant or valid for you anymore? How many of you, I'm going to use Mary's conversation that we had just before the service started. Mary was saying how she feels so guilty for not coming to church, but every Sunday she does something within her own space that is her spiritual God connection. And then she feels guilty because she hasn't come to a venue. Now, we have to come to a venue from time to time. And I'm sorry, girl, but we don't have to come here every Sunday. And I know a lot of you don't come every Sunday. We come when the mood is there, when we feel the need. But I want to say to you, it doesn't mean just about Sunday service, but in anything in your life, the way that you treat your family and your friends, the way that you feel obligated to do things, is it relevant? We've just come through COVID. For us here in KZN, we had horrific floods. We've had the most horrendous things happening on a global scale to force us each to change our way of thinking, to change our way of behaving, to change our way of believing. Everything is shifting. Everything is different. Nothing is the same as it was 5 years ago, 2 years ago. Everything has changed. And we need to, as a species, as human beings, as individuals, we need to up our game. We need to start saying, what do I do in my life that is no longer relevant and valid, but I'm doing it because it's history, because it's the old way. I sat here this morning and I said to Mary as well, I said, I haven't done a church service in so long, I've forgotten how it goes. Why do we have to stick with the same? Why can't we change? Why can't we evolve? Why can't we do things a little bit differently? And that is something that I live my life by. I don't conform to much in life. I have purple hair because I can. It's the only reason, is because I can. I live my life differently. My belief system is different to everybody else's, and I embrace that. I never try and adjust myself to fit in with everybody else's belief system. So people will think I'm strange. Some people like me, some people don't, and I'm okay with that. Are you? Within your life? Are you okay with the way people perceive you? Are you trying to adjust yourself to fit in, or are you creating a new stream of consciousness? The way we celebrate spirit needs to adjust. It needs to change. It needs to evolve. Because everything is evolved. Our vibration, our frequency of who we are as individuals and our spirit connection is evolving. We are going through major evolution. But it's learning to understand that if you do things a little bit differently, it's okay. It's okay. We don't have to be the same as everybody else. We can be different. The fact that you're all here at a spiritualist church, where it is a little bit outside of the norm, is amazing, is wonderful. But we have to embrace that. We have to stand and speak our truth. We have to not feel guilty when we do something that colors outside of the lines. We need to colour outside the lines because there's a whole lot of paper there that needs a bit of colour on it. Don't feel like you have to conform, and don't feel guilty when you do something that's a little bit different. Don't feel guilty when you are not following in the same line as everybody else. There are times and places for that, like I say, driving on the roads. I'm not encouraging you to drive on the other side, okay? Let's not colour outside the lines on the road, but within your own life, within your own reality, let's not be afraid to be different. Let's not be afraid to speak up, to express yourself, and to say what it is that you're truly feeling, what it is that you're truly believing, and what it is that you're truly living. On the note of spirit guides, this is the conversation that I had with Gail this morning. My philosophy on spirit guides is a little bit different to most people's. I've been working with spirit my whole life. From a tiny, tiny little girl, I used to hear voices, and everybody thought I was strange and that I had all sorts of things. My family didn't understand. I didn't understand. And I was different. I've always been different. And eventually I stopped hiding my difference, and I started embracing it. When it comes to spirit guides, you all know what a spirit guide is. You all know that we have these spirit beings that connect with us. And they connect with us in love. They connect with us with compassion and understanding. And all they want to do is help us to be better, help us to be stronger, help us to be more than. We've chosen this earth incarnation to learn lessons, some harder than others, some more difficult than others. But we're all here to improve ourselves. We're all here to become better. But if we stop changing, how are we improving? How are we growing? How are we evolving? Our earth at the moment is going through the biggest change ever. And a lot of us are trying to stay in the old systems, in the old ways, in the old methods. We need to open ourselves up to change, to evolution, to growth, to expansion, to new. So in your work, whatever it is that you do all day long, if you're doing things the same way you did them a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, it's time to change. Not the job, but the how. Embrace technology for one, if you haven't already done that, but just in communication. Communication is different. We don't communicate in the way that we used to. How did we used to communicate? We used to come to a church gathering, we used to sit and we used to communicate. Now, we hardly see people. We hardly see people. The fact that all these chairs are not full is an indication of we all do things differently now. But I can tell you that every single one of these chairs in here is full. This room is overflowing right now with spirit energy, completely and utterly overflowing. It's right there for us to grab, to use, but we have to choose to do things a bit differently. Everything, the way that we think, the way that we perceive, the way that we expect. So if you think, oh, I must do that because it's expected of me, that's the first thing you need to change. Nothing is expected of you. And if anybody's putting that kind of pressure on you, it's wrong. You should only do the things, as Arthur said in his reading, we should do things that bring joy. We should do things that bring happiness. We shouldn't do things out of obligation. We shouldn't do things because we feel we have to. We should do things because we want to. I'm not here today out of obligation. I'm here because I want to be. You're here because you want to be. If you're here out of obligation, you're here for the wrong reasons, and you're not going to get from the service what you need. We need to start doing things from our hearts, not from our heads. COVID, everything that the world has been through, is shifting us from here to here. We're suddenly more concerned about the other person. We're suddenly considering other people. Why did we all stay home? Why did we all lock down? For our own safety, but also for the safety of others. If you had symptoms, you isolated. Why? Because you didn't want to spread. You didn't want to give. So it shifted the focus from here to here. Now let's take it to the next step. Now let's take it to the next level. Let's evolve. Let's change. Let's learn to love one another. That phrase gets passed around so freely. Love your neighbor as you would love yourself. What does that actually mean, though? Does it mean you need to look at another person and have this kind of outpouring of emotion, of love for them? No. Being kind, being considerate, being compassionate, being empathetic with another person is the best way to love another person. If you don't know a person, if you don't like a person, can you still love them? Of course you can. That's exactly when you should. Learning to accept people for who they are. Learning to accept people with all their goods and their bads. And accepting them as such, not expecting them to change, not putting that kind of pressure on them. That's how we learn to love. Do you understand? So when you see somebody who irritates you, who frustrates you, who angers you, be okay with that, because love them for that. Be grateful that they're giving you that lesson. Be grateful that they're causing you to step out of your comfort zone. Love them unconditionally, and I promise you they will go away because you've learned the lesson. When somebody irritates you and they keep coming back and they keep coming back, it's because you're trying to change them, or you're trying to change yourself so that they like you. Don't do anything out of obligation. Do things because you want to. Do things because it feels good in your heart. In my own personal circumstance, when people have irritated me and I've accepted them for it, and I've loved them for it, and I've shown gratitude for it, suddenly they don't irritate me anymore. And it's not that they've disappeared from my life, but the lesson that they're teaching me evolves and changes. So the sooner we accept, the sooner we learn to love unconditionally, without expectation, the sooner life becomes simpler. We all have problems, we all have challenges, we're all going through a lot right now. But when you learn to just be accepting of your circumstance and everybody around your circumstance without judgment, that's when life becomes easier. And that's when we have the experiences that we need to have in this world. That's when we suddenly become just more on purpose. Because you're not here to just have a holiday. You're not on this earth to just have an easy ride. Hands up anybody who's having an easy ride. Not one. Because you've been placed here to learn the hard lessons, to have the difficulties, to have the challenges. But what we're doing is we're trying to keep them there. We're trying to control instead of actually just going with the flow. I'm sure many of you have experienced an aeroplane ride before. You've been on an aeroplane. When they do the safety check, what do they say? Put your mask on before worrying about anybody else's mask in case of emergency. Why? Because if you don't take care of yourself first, how can you take care of anybody else? And all of us sitting here in our lives, we're so focused on being there for other people, helping and being kind and generous to other people, doing for others, we forget about ourselves. And we wonder why our life is just a continuous stream of challenge, of difficulty, of heartache, of hardship. The sooner we start putting our own oxygen masks on first, before helping anybody else, do things because you want to, not because you have to. When you've got your oxygen mask on, you can look around and say, God, who do I want to help? Who needs my help more? But while you're battling to breathe yourself, you can't help anybody. You're actually pretty useless to everybody. So you have to take care of yourself first before you take care of anybody else around you. But do it because you want to, not because you feel obligated. Does that resonate? I'm going to leave it there, friends. Lots of love and blessings. Thank you for listening to me today.